So here we are. As I said, we've got an interesting one tonight. All right, we've got a residing parent, and she's reached out, Sarah, and we're going to get Noel to do the magic tonight. He's going to speak to Sarah because he's got to know her quite, not intimately, but he knows her. All right, so stop thinking that. Right, Beefcake's with us. How are you, Craigie Beefcake?
Bloody marvellous meal, China. Bloody marvellous.
How's COVID treating you?
Oh, lovely.
Still need an haircut, mate.
Uh,
and on that note, let's go to Noel. Hey, let's go to Noel. Like I said, mate, if he puts grey streaks up the middle there, he will look like a skunk. So, Noel, you need to go and see the barber sometime. But how are you, bud?
I'm very well, but how are you?
Yeah, not bad, but are you all right, bud?
We've got an interesting one tonight, haven't we?
I tell you what, where did you find her?
She reached out to us. I
tell you what. Welcome, Sarah, because I tell you, we don't have talent on yours usually. It's just us three. And then we get a guy called Alex Reed, which he's not as beautiful as any of us, you know, and he's definitely not as beautiful as you. So welcome. And I'm gonna let Noel do the quick Noel, you do the introduction and talk to Sarah. And I'm gonna sit back and I'm gonna take a break today on this.
Okay, thank you very much.
You carry on, so bye bye.
Thank you very much, but hi, Sarah.
Hello, you all right?
Not too bad, thank you. Thank you very much for reaching out to us and for offering to come on today and to explain. It's not very often that we get the resident parent that is coming on to speak to us about their involvement with the child maintenance service and the old child support agency. So thank you very much for coming on. You're very brave to do it. We're very happy to have you on board. And I'm sure that everybody who watches our videos are going to be very, very intrigued to see what it's like to be on the other end of the child maintenance service.
Well, I hope, you know, other residing parents see it and just think, well, maybe I'm not the only one that feels like I'm the only case that's a blip in the system, because that's how it feels. You feel like you're the only parent that's having issues with your case. So maybe other people will see it and realise that actually there's bigger fish to fry than the odd case.
Well, do you know what? It's very interesting that you sort of say that, because what the CMS do and what the government do, they label us deadbeats. Yeah, every article that you read, it's deadbeat fathers. But what we keep saying is that we are all fathers that have been paying for our children or are paying for our children. And there's not a single person that has come on any of these podcasts that doesn't believe that if you make them, you pay for them in hindsight. And everybody is of that same impression. And that's not being politically correct or anything like that. All fathers want to pay for their children. They want to give their children the best possible start in life, just the same way that a mother does.
Yeah.
But in the nuts and the bolts of all of this, we've got the child maintenance service and the child support agency, who kind of have led you up the garden path, haven't they? Because when you were explaining your story to us, you know, you were kind of caught between a rock and a hard place between you and your partner. You didn't know what sort of money, you know, that he should be paying you, what you would deem as an appropriate amount for the children. And between you couldn't decide what was, you know, an agreeable amount of money. So that's when so it's very important that people understand that you haven't gone to the child maintenance service or the CSA to be spiteful or, you know, you use them in the best possible capacity, because between you and your partner, you couldn't agree what you should be paying for your children and what you shouldn't.
Yeah, so we were taking advantage of a service that they say they offer, which is they can just work out an agreeable amount between parents and then they take a step back. That's what they kind of say they will do. at the, you know, the basic level, and that's what we wanted. We couldn't decide. I didn't want to say, well, I think this is reasonable, and he didn't want to say an amount that was too low. So we decided, at the time it was the CSA, we decided that we would contact them and we would let them decide an amount for him to pay to me. And then it all went wrong. Seriously.
Right. So in that process, if you could just sort of explain to everybody what was that process? So when you got in touch with the, sorry, was it the CSA or the Child Maintenance Service at the time?
No, it was the CSA at the time.
Right. So when you got in touch with the Child Support Agency at the time, what is it that they said? What is it that they suggested?
So when I called them, I explained the situation, that my daughter's father and I, we'd parted ways, and that we couldn't decide on how much was reasonable as a payment towards the child maintenance. So they went through a massive list of questions. I gave them all my details. They asked for as many of his details as possible, where he worked, if I knew how much he earned, if I knew which bank he banked with. They asked details about our daughter, about when we broke up, about if he had other children or if he had other children living with him. They went through everything. So that after that phone call, they said they have to then contact him, and then they go through a whole, I suppose, mostly the same questions with him, and they request certain information for bank statements and pay slips and things like that, and then they would work an amount out from that, and then they would contact us both with an agreeable amount, and then he would just pay straight from himself into my bank.
So sorry, they actually said to you that we will work out an agreeable amount. They just didn't come up with a figure.
Yeah, so they said they would get an agreeable amount based on his wages, his earnings, but they base it on his wages before his tax and national insurance and things like that come out. So they would base it on his earnings, and then they would contact the both of us. When they worked out, I mean, it took about 18 months. It was to and fro for 18 months. He was sending and giving them the information they needed, that they asked for. They were telling me that he hadn't. And eventually it caused problems between me and him, you know, because I was saying to him, well, you haven't given them this information, so nothing can get going. And he knew that he had. So
there we go, no. That's straight away. Hold that point there for a minute, Sarah, because I want to come in by it, because I just want to point out that to and fro for 18 months.
Yeah.
I keep saying it builds arrears up, but what I keep saying is this is the time now. The biggest thing in mental health, all right, mental well-being, is it creates these inner conversations where they're playing with two people. They're playing with a husband, they're playing with the girlfriend, or, you know, they're playing with the two people who've got a child. Because what they're doing now is, and Sarah, you said they were telling you he hasn't given you this, he hasn't given us this paperwork. How much money did you receive in that 18 months?
So after about 18 months, I received a payment of about £26 and a few pence.
Is that all you received?
Yeah.
So straight away, no, money is one of the key factors, right? There's three big stresses in life we have. Money's the biggest one, then relationship, and then change. So if you've got a relationship breakdown and money, you've got three things involved there, which are really going to drive people's mental well-being out the window. 18 months, and she only got £26. And here's another question I got for you. How did you feel when you contacted them? Did you feel they were going to bend over backwards and do everything for you and sort it?
Yeah, when I first phoned them to, you know, to get the ball rolling,
Yeah.
they were all really, really nice on the phone. You know, they were really helpful, and it was, you know, we'll do absolutely everything we can to make this a smoother process as possible. And there were all these kind of time frames that were promised as well. You know, oh, it will only take up to 6 weeks. You know, and so yeah, they made it all sound. They were so geared up to help. Although I can't say they were quite as geared up when they spoke to the non-resident parent.
Yeah.
It was from what we spoke about, they kind of approached him with this, you know, this attitude of, well, you're not paying for your child kind of thing. That was the attitude he was approached with, which, you know, won't help a situation.
Well, no, and that's a very, very, very interesting point. So, you know, just on that basis, you know, what we need to point out is the fact that they're demonstrating bias straight away.
Yeah,
When you have contacted a government department, you know, which you are led to believe, which sorts out child arrangements, that they have already made your ex-partner feel like he's incapable of paying for his child, and quite often talks about mental health, because this is Mental Health Awareness Month anyway, isn't it? This month is do I stand corrected on that? I think this is Mental Health Awareness Month. I'm pretty sure it does. But you know, when you start talking about mental health, you know, if you're made to feel a certain way, particularly by like a government agency, that's already going to start causing conflict between you and him, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did it cause conflict between you and him?
It did, as far as money went, which actually in the beginning was not an issue. We just couldn't work out an amount.
Yeah.
But the to and fro in with the CSA and the length of time it was taking, the way they approached him and the crap they were filling me up with, it eventually, this whole thing with money between me and him turned into a massive problem, and we ended up rowing about it constantly rowing about it.
So straight away, their involvement has caused conflict in would you say when you broke up with your ex-partner that, you know, you were very amicable?
It was, it was. There was none of this, you're not seeing your daughter crap. There was none of that. He pops up for tea, he comes over for dinner. We just couldn't be together. We could not be together, and that was it. It wasn't because
you know, it happens, and you know, that's one of the, you know, that's just one of those things, isn't it? You know, you can fall out of love with each other, or you just find that there's nothing in common anymore, or sometimes, you know, which happens many times, couples will just say, do you know what, we're pretty good friends. You know, the attraction side of things, you know, that can filter away, you know, whatever it might be. So so what sort of year did you first get in contact with the child support agency?
That was in 2014.
Okay, so that was in the transitional period, wasn't it? From when?
So I got a letter sent to me. I'm pretty sure it was about a year after. So in 2015, I think, was when I got the letter to say the CSA were going to be closing down. It would now become the Child Maintenance Service, and my case would then go over to them. So I think it was 2015.
Right. So up until this point, you had received how much money?
What, up until the point of swapping over to CMS? Nothing. I hadn't received nothing, not a penny, nothing. They were still telling me that they hadn't received the information from the paying parent that he had sent them on recorded delivery. And because
quite a regular thing.
Well, because they were causing this conflict, we had stopped talking to each other about the process.
Yeah.
And so
exactly what they do.
They were loving that.
Do you know what the funny thing is here, and we're just going to slightly go off subject here. You know, do you know what? It's a very funny thing that you should say that he was sending everything recorded, because I can actually personally vouch for that.
Yeah.
Because when the CMS first got involved in my life, and I was saying to him, I don't owe this money, I was sending everything recorded delivery,
Yeah.
and nothing was being signed for.
Yeah.
Nothing was being signed for, and it was all being returned back to sender.
I mean, I can't honestly say if it was being returned back to him or if somebody was signing for it or not. I don't know. All I know is that when I did approach my daughter's dad about not sending documents in, he was showing me, you know, you get the little thing
slip
from the post office, and he said it's been sent recorded delivery. They have received it. They're telling you a bunch of lies. And of course, I relied on them being this big government thing. I was like, they wouldn't bloody lie about it. And again, causing arguments.
When did
you see, this is the other flip side to the coin, is when we tell people that the CMS is the most corrupt organized crime, I keep saying that they are an organized crime syndicate, because the way that they conduct themselves is how an organized crime syndicate would conduct themselves.
Yeah.
But because they've got a so-called crown on their letterhead,
yeah, they have.
That they seem to think that they can just get away by lying, causing this mayhem, you know, that they exist to help, you know, child poverty, when in fact they're actually creating child poverty.
Yeah, they are. And they're probably the cause for a lot of amicable people completely breaking down and who end up using their kids as pawns.
Yeah, and they're supposed to protect the children, and they're not. Because what they're doing, they're driving a wedge between the parents, because the parents are all of a sudden, that's it. Money's involved, and straight away, they're manipulating. They're manipulating your mind there.
Yeah,
and that's what they're doing. And so 18 months, £26. That's unbelievable. So when did you start getting money? And were the arrears amounting up quite quick on your partner's bill?
So it was sent over to CMS.
Yeah.
It left the CSA and it was sent to CMS. So about 6 months after it going to CMS, I received the payment of about £26 and a few odd pence. After that, I can't be 100% certain. I honestly, I don't remember receiving any payments at all. And the next thing I know, I got a letter through saying that my account was under the yearly review, and so any payments would stop. And I was like, well, that's a bloody laugh, because I haven't had any payments. So that all, it went on the yearly review, and then they sent me another letter saying that I should receive £71 a month.
Yeah.
Which I think I got twice, and that was it.
And the big thing, Noel, before everybody come on, I had a quick chat with Sarah. And the big thing which really got me, Sarah, was the figures you started chucking at me.
Yeah.
About they'd taken, this is the worst thing, Noel. They actually went then and went into his wages, into his boss, pay and collect. So they're taking 20% off the father, taking 4% now off the resident parent. Non-resident parent, they're taking that 20% off, which we know.
No, they're adding 20%, Clive. They're not taking it off.
Yeah, they're adding 20%, but that's 20% for the CMS. All right. So, and this is the thing now, Sarah. Go through them figures again for me, because I tell you what, it really. And the worst thing is, Sarah's been talking. This is, you got the non-resident parent and you got the resident parent talking, and you know the two of them are working amicable through this. CMS have been trying to put a wedge between them. But listen to this, Noel. This is unbelievable. Go on, Sam.
Right. So I had a letter or in August 2019, which is one of these old letters I've kept, to say that a pay that I should be receiving 46.52 pence per week. So between the 15th of August 2019 and the 22nd of September, I should have received £2,651.64. What I actually received in dribs and drabs was £594.79. So that leaves a difference of £2,056, which did not come off the arrears because the arrears have doubled. So where's all that money gone?
Right, Craig, this is your bit here.
Where have the arrears gone?
Well, exactly. I don't even know why the arrears are there.
No, well, they seem to be just creating arrears so they can collect to go against this 3.8 billion of arrears that they've magically created through interim maintenance assessments, and they're trying to clear that. So what they're doing is they're spreading thousands of pounds between each paying parent to try and reduce that 3.8 billion. When that 3.8, most 75% of that 3.8 billion has actually been confirmed that it's uncollectible because it was created by interim maintenance assessments, inflated up to 300%. So that's what they're trying to do. But there's also cases where CMS staff, CSA staff have been embezzling money, putting it into their own accounts. There's one woman called Audrey Foy from Scotland, from I think it's the Falkirk office. She embezzled £150,000 into her own account. So I'll send you the image, Clive, if you want to put it up there. If
You can share it. You can share it. You shared it yourself.
Sorry, just before you share anything, so just to reiterate for anybody who's watching this, in hindsight, what Craig is saying is that the National Audit Office, when they closed down the Child Support Agency, what Craig is saying to everybody who's listening here is that there was £3.8 billion that the National Audit Office could not audit. They couldn't work out where that money, where that figure had come from.
No.
Yeah.
No. Right. Okay. That 75% of that 3.8 billion could not be enforced because it had been created of interim maintenance assessments inflated of up to 300%. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, yeah, the point that I was coming to. So what they're doing is that they're dumping all these arrears on everybody who's on their books. They're dumping all these arrears that never existed in the first place.
But no, I'm going to go back because I am getting a little bit. We have these fictitious arrears coming in all the time. All right. And I'm getting a little bit peed off because I tell you why. Because I know at the moment I've got a residing parent sitting in front of me and they allege they give her £2,651.64. And they didn't. They only give her £594.70. So where's that £2,000 they've actually said they give her? What the accountants, this is where we go back. Who are the accountants they got working for them? Are they in kindergarten? Because I'm not being funny. That's fraud. That is absolute fraud. Because Sarah, they say in 1 minute, oh, we give you 2,600. Woohoo! And Sarah's looking at her bank accounts, looking at everything, going, hang on, you've only given me 500.
Yeah.
And 94, near 600. Where's the other 2,000? So that's the questions we need to start asking, because that is absolutely, it's unbelievable. So there she is there, look. We brought her up the other day.
No, that's Claire Jones from Plymouth.
Right.
£7,000 she siphoned into her own account when that was actually for due to parents. she put it in her own bank account.
How did that?
Here we go. Look at this. Frittered it away. Mum, who embezzled £150,000 from child support agency where she worked in a 5 splashed cash on holidays in a car. Brazen Audrey Floyd transferred vast sums of taxpayers' cash into her bank account in a systematic fraud over 21 months. There we go.
That's disgusting. And that's actually, hang on. That's May 2017, Sarah. She's had to me on money away.
She had a holiday at my expense.
I tell you what. But and why ain't people being able to account, especially in the government? Because as you said, Sarah, you went there, you were amicable when you went together, just because you couldn't work out the money.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, they've driven a wedge between. Right, here we go. I'm going to ask you about your, right, Sarah, this really touches my heart because we're going to have a gentleman watching this tonight. And Ian Briggs is the father for Gavin Briggs, who took his life 3rd of July last year. And we have people taking their lives because they're left with no money to live.
Yeah.
Did your partner reach out to you at any point and tell you, I'm in a bad place now? This is...
Yeah, he did quite a few times. He phoned me in tears because the CSA were taking so much, they were taking so much money from him that he was struggling to pay his rent. You know, he was a single man. He wasn't entitled to council accommodation. He was having to rent privately. Yeah. And then he was also working on the lorries away all week. So his phone bill was quite hefty because he needed access to the internet. You know, he was worried about paying his bills. And then our daughter's birthday would come up and he would be in tears because he couldn't buy her birthday presents. And, you know, and I said, look, if I get any money from the CSA, I'll give it straight back to you. I wasn't out to fleece him and to destroy him. It's just how the CSA ended up making it. And
and that's it, no.
Awful.
And that's it, no. That's what we've got to remember is we done this the other week, didn't we? And we said, you know, when you split up and you break up in a relationship, a lot of times the presenting, the residing parent is usually the one who, you know, is the lady, and usually it is the man who goes out, and then he's got to. But what happens then? You got potentially you could have a mortgage. You could have that gentleman's got to move. The man's got to move out of the house, and then they got to. It's like if they've got to have another job on top to bring in because they've got 2 lots of bills to pay now, and they don't take into account, the CSA don't take into account at all about people's living costs, and it's geared. I tell you what it's geared for, Sarah, and we've shown this already. If you were on universal credit, or you were on the government schemes, do you know you're better off on the government schemes than you are working? Because the more money they take off you.
I can quite believe it, yeah.
That's the sad point.
Yeah. Do you know that's a very, very interesting point there, Clive, because if a man is on universal credit, he pays £7 a week, I think, towards. So please someone explain to me, when they keep talking about child poverty, how that is going to lift a child out of poverty.
It's not.
Forcing a guy to out of work, who's, you know, so when you're looking at it this way, he's been forced out of work, so he's no longer paying tax to the government, and then he's only paying the bare minimum to his kids in child maintenance.
But Craig, that's not even. I mean, that's not even the bare minimum. I mean, what is £7? What is £7 going to buy a child this day and age?
Exactly. And that's the thing. Where's the common sense in this? There's no common sense whatsoever. You know, yes, the CSA might be getting a short-term gain of large sums of money, but then when someone has a mental health breakdown, you know, have a breakdown because of distress caused by the CSA, then the government has got to pay the benefits to them.
But Craig, it's not just that.
It's ridiculous.
It's that inner conversation you have in your mind, in your subconscious mind. Because you want a lot of times you want your child to do better than what you had when you were brought up. And all of a sudden you actually turn around and you start telling yourself you're not a good father. Because you can't give to your child anymore. And what happens, it gets bitter. And it does get bitter. I don't care what anybody says, when money gets involved. And luckily, Sarah, I'll take my hat off to you because you probably went to the bitter route when they were driving the wedge between you. And for some unknown reason, you've got it back and you've gone, hang on, let's look at this. And a lot of people out there, men and women, when they're going through the bitterness, they turn away and walk away. Look, I hold my hand up. I walked away. And when it got bitter, I just went, right, I'm off. I've had enough of this.
Guys, can I share something?
Yeah.
We'll play for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting, this. Right, give me a second. Right. Here we go. Come on. Where are you? You ready?
Yeah. Oh, no. Can't hear it, Craig.
Oh. Hang on. Well, I'll send it to you, Clive.
Go on then.
I'll send it to you via email, okay?
No.
Can I just say, before we get off the universal credits point, we are actually, myself and my daughter's dad, we're actually in that situation right now. So he gave up his job to pursue a new career, and then lockdown hit. So he couldn't carry on doing what he was doing. So he's claiming universal credits, which he gets, I think it's like 90 quid a fortnight or something like that.
Yeah.
Out of that, he has to pay £7 a week to the child maintenance service. And out of that, I get £6 a fortnight.
Which, I mean, to me, is just not funny.
It's not funny at all.
It's ridiculous is what it is.
Yeah.
It's like £3 a week, you know? So every time that comes in, I transfer it back into his bank account because it's, you know, it's a bit of a slap in the chops, to be perfectly honest. They might as well say he's claiming universal credits. We're giving him the bare minimum to live on. Unfortunately, he can't afford to give you money right now, but they do. They're still taking it from him. So they're taking 14 quid a fortnight and yet giving our daughter 6 quid of that.
This is where people don't realize. People don't realize it was geared up for people on benefits for universal credit. And I tell you what, with COVID, the government say, oh, we've lifted you by £20, giving you on your benefits. We've done this for you, we've done that. And they've only done that because there is people who have been in high money earners, have had to go furlong or drop off onto universal credit, and people have started beating the drums going, oh, can't survive on this. Well, come to the real world, because we've got, some of us got to survive on that. Some of us has got to, you know, and I just, it absolutely hurts inside. And I know we've got individuals out there who, they're struggling. They're absolutely struggling. They're on their knees, and you know, and we've got a government agency who, don't take this the wrong way, because it's a lot of resident parent in gingerbread. They just, when it's ideal, if you're in a bitter breakup and you broke up because one of them done a dirty or something happened, they'll support you 100%, and they'll rip the person apart, and they will, if a man or a woman, if you're the residing parent, you've got so much you can get back at somebody and hurt somebody, and they don't realize realize the damage they cause, and to the child as well, because the child watches it. And this next video, Craig, I wish you didn't send me this, because I didn't want to.
And just before you, just before that video is played, just so that Sarah sort of understands something here, is basically what the government is doing, the big corporations as well, which Clive, Craig and myself talk about a lot of the time, which we're not going to go into because we've covered it on many times. All the big corporations, the government, the judiciary, they're all in this business model. And children is the best way to make millions upon billions of pounds. We're not even talking about millions anymore. We're talking about billions.
It's another economy to them.
And we've actually got living evidence now. There's been a petition with over 100,000 signatures that's gone to government saying, with children, the minute that there's a separation, that both parents have 50-50 automated rights towards that child. Would you agree, Sarah, that every single family, a mother and a father, should have 50-50 shared care of that child?
Yeah, I do. If it's possible.
Unless there's safeguarding issues.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about welfare, because welfare could be toilet facilities. I'm talking about safeguarding issues. Let's, you know, if there's major criminality, then yes, with evidence, then, you know, then I fully concur that that should be looked at by the courts. But
yeah,
the government has turned around and said, under no circumstances will the laws be changed regarding 50-50 shared care, even though they've had petition with over 100,000 signatures on it. And why do you think that is?
You know, with the CMS and the CSA, if a paying parent has shared care, so has their child to stay for so many nights a week, their payments get reduced, and therefore there's less money going in the CSA pot.
The CMS doesn't exist. It's not that it gets reduced. If it's 50-50 shared care, that's it. There is no family court system anymore. Her Majesty's Court Services is done. All the barristers in the family courts are done. Every single person who has the so-called stakeholder interest in all of these government departments, they're all finished overnight. If that law was to change in the morning, the CMS is done.
But don't forget, last year they made 38 million profit. No company I know makes 38 million profit.
Is that the CMS?
Yeah, they pulled out 38 million.
When you think of it, if that's profit, yes, but look at the impact they've had on the taxpayer. Over 1,000 suicides a year. Each suicide costs the taxpayer 1.7 million.
Craig. The new statistics is 2016.
Oh wow, there we go. So
2016 suicides a year now attributed to the CMS.
So that's it, Craig. That's your 3.4 billion there, Craig. Just over.
So there we go. So they're costing the taxpayer 3.8 billion with the suicides.
And the sad reality of all of this, of what they're doing, I mean, this is, in my opinion, this is genocide.
It is.
But there is no two ways about it. You know, this is no joking matter. It's no laughing matter. This is genocide. When we have people coming on our groups saying that there's crime scene cleaners who are now reporting the amount of men that are hanging themselves off of banisters in their homes. where the court services are involved in their children's life, where the courts are involved or the CMS are involved. Do you know what? I bet if you were now to you know, obtain true facts of how many men are committing suicide where the courts are involved, CAFCAS are involved, social services are involved, and the child maintenance service, I would pretty much hazard a guess that you would probably be looking at least maybe 50 men a week.
The problem you've got is they're not willing to record it because of what they will find. And that's the biggest problem you've got. Don't forget, the CSA, it hasn't changed. That's all they've done was CMS just had a change of brand name. The people who work for CSA actually just, that's all they done was plugged out of one system, plugged into another. They didn't
same pig with lipstick. Simple as that.
What is it?
Nasty, horrible stuff.
Same
pig, but with lipstick. It's just the same nasty, horrible stuff.
But it is, you know, and there'll be another brand change within the next 3 years.
It's the same offices. It's the same staff. You know, they've changed a couple of telephone numbers. You know, and this will shock you, Sarah. All of the MPs that have been elected to serve us, they all know what's going on.
None of them have answered.
None of them answer. And even the ministers who are responsible for that government department don't even answer. They just ignore you.
The problem...
Exactly like that video that's going to get shown in a minute, where this girl is speaking from her heart. Is absolutely heartbreaking. The distress that they caused.
But the problem we got is Ian's got all the evidence of the fictitious arrears, and not even his MP will speak to him properly. Nobody, we've reached out to everybody, nobody's willing to talk about it. And he's got the evidence of the fictitious arrears. And then we've got another individuals with fictitious arrears. We've got people who are serving in the military who are more frightened than our government, CMS, Child Maintenance Services, than they are the terrorists they're actually going after. So, and nobody's interested because it's a big money spinner. And Sarah, where are you today with it? Are you, where are you?
Actually, I've closed the account down, and I have asked them to write the arrears off.
Oh, good girl. Well done to you.
I asked them not to pursue the paying parent for a penny of the arrears, and I've asked them to send me that to confirm it in writing.
So do you think they'll do that, Craig? Will they do that? Will they do that?
Should do. They should do. Yes, they should do. If the parent with care asks for the case to be closed down, then they have to.
You know,
but what will be interesting will be to find out whether or not they send a letter saying that that they've closed the case and that they are not going to pursue those arrears. But even at that, I can guarantee you, we'll probably bring you back on here in 6 months, and you'll say, "Guess what, guys? You must be Mystic Meg. They're pursuing him for the fictitious arrears."
Actually, hang on. They're not. I'm going to tell you now, and you can hold me on this. But my feeling is they're not going to close your account. Do you want me to tell you why? Because you're both on universal credit. So what they will say is, we need to
I'm not on universal credit.
Okay.
No. Yeah, and he's only on it for the time being because he can't. So he's trying to pursue the career of driving instructor so that he has more free time. But he can't finish that. He can't do his instructor's course until COVID restrictions lift.
Okay.
They do, he'll be self-employed again.
Yeah. So I tell you what, they'll try. I think they'll try and worm out of that. I'm going to show you this video now, and I'm going to find it hard now. Here we go. Let's get this video up what Craig's just sent me. Let's see if I can get the volume on it. Sarah, I'm sorry about this.
It's right.
Because I haven't seen it, but I know what it's going to be like, and I don't know why, but so can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Tell me if you can hear it, Craig. Can you hear it?
No.
You have to turn it up. Clive, can you turn it up?
I'm trying to.
I have to wait another 6 years before I was allowed to talk to him over the phone. And this was only 10 minutes between 5:30 and 6 on a Wednesday evening.
Can you hear it?
No.
I tell you what we'll do. We'll share the link, I think. No?
No, it was not.
Yeah.
When I was at my mum's, it was like I wasn't his daughter anymore because he wasn't allowed to be my dad. It was all on paper, in writing, in court orders. My life being controlled like some kind of computer game.
Clive,
From the beginning of the court proceedings, my dad witnessed
Yeah.
the unjust
There you go.
and damaging system of the secret family courts. By 2001, he'd met a lot of other fathers and people denied access to their children just like him, and began campaigning to bring this corruption to the public eye. I remember thinking how funny my dad was climbing buildings. It must have been really small, but I was proud of him. I encouraged him to wear his Robin suit because I thought the R stood for Rosie, and every time there was a protest or a march, I loved the excitement and I wanted to go. I remember talking about my dad at my mum's when I was small and her really crying. I didn't want to upset her, and so from this really young age, I tried never to speak of him. I felt I had to be careful about everything I said in case it was used to hurt either of my parents in court. I was so confused, but I couldn't talk to anyone. Who should I believe? Should I be afraid of my dad because my mum seems to be? Everyone seems to be against my dad. Everyone but me. And this became embarrassing. At primary school, I won an award for doing well, and because my mum would not be in the same hall as my dad, I had to have 2 assemblies. I had to stand in front of my whole school and receive the same award twice. I hated that I had to have special measures. For years, every time I went to his house, my mum had to bring the police along too. She claimed she was scared of him, that he was dangerous, even though I knew he wasn't. As a young child, I thought this was really funny, giggling to my dad, "Mummy's brought the police along again." But one day when they arrived, I told him it wasn't funny anymore because the police only came for bad people. I don't remember why my view was different. Perhaps my mum was unhappy that I was laughing at a situation she took so seriously, and this changed my mind. When I was about 4 years old, my mum went on holiday to America. She'd originally said my dad could have me for this time, but she later retracted this offer to spite him after a court hearing she was upset by. My mum should not have been allowed to use me as a weapon like this, as a possession she could hurt my dad with. But while she was away, I stayed with him anyway because there was no reason I shouldn't be allowed to. During this time, police came round to our house and tried to take me away. I was with my own dad, yet I was on the missing persons list. My dad refused that they take me, and so they insisted they had to check me for any signs of abuse. So he got me out of the bath where I was clearly happy, singing away, to check me for bruises or indications of harm. In front of me, his 4-year-old daughter, they were treating him like some kind of criminal. The police officers did then leave, but after this, my mum's solicitor said she thought the police should have forcibly removed me from my dad's house. I have this in writing. This is not a solicitor trying to help achieve a working family unit or serve in my best interests. In 2006, when my dad went to court to win the right to talk to me over the phone, he bought me a mobile so we could chat in the allocated 10 minutes between 5:30 and 6 on the Wednesday evening. A short time later, it came up in court that he sent too many kisses on text to me, that he was obsessive and wanted to see me too much. This made me furious. As my dad's campaigning became of higher profile, things changed. Everyone was out to get him. Our door has always been open and friends would come in from our street and play in our house with me. But the police and the CSA turned a knock at our front door into a stressful matter, so it was always locked and our curtains were always closed in case anyone came to the house. For years, I couldn't sleep without holding his thumb. I was so scared people would come in the night and take me away. Even when I fell asleep, I'd still hold it tight. The police raided our home and the CSA sent bailiffs on the basis that my dad rightly refused to fund me through my mum. They took our computer, pictures I'd drawn for him, and his driving licence away. The CSA, Child Support Agency, but they didn't have any concern of how that would affect me. This made life even more difficult as my mum's parents had to pick me up from dad's on the alternate Monday morning to take me to school. This was very uncomfortable for me, as even speaking of my dad's name caused awkwardness and upset, something I was really anxious to avoid. On one occasion, I was about 8 years old and my grandma came to pick me up. I was tired of the hatred between the two sides of my family, and I told her I didn't want to go with her. My dad reassured her that he would get me to school somehow, but minutes later, the police were on the phone to my dad, wondering why I was not at school yet. They were constantly on his case, making him out to be some irresponsible father in need of supervision. This made me so angry, and I told my dad that I wanted to go down to the police station and talk to them. Once there, I completely emptied my thoughts and feelings out to a police lady, and I told her I wanted to see more of my dad. She managed to twist round everything I said, undermine me, make my dad look bad. She only replied to say something like, "You only want to see him more because you have lots of fun weekends with him." Eventually, I just burst into tears in the police station. "Why won't anyone just listen to me?" I cried at her. I felt so small, humiliated and useless. I was in pain. We were all in this hell of the family courts and I didn't have a voice. Before we left the station, she promised me she'd get me a counsellor to talk to. She never did this. In fact, she stirred up more trouble by contacting my mum and passing on the information I told her in confidence that day. I was taught again from those who claim to work in my best interests and that I should be able to trust, that in fact I should not trust anyone. I was told that I was important, yet nobody listened to me. I was told that my feelings mattered, yet my screaming voice was silent. I loved my dad and I wanted to be with him, yet I was treated as though I did not deserve a father. In an interview with 2 Plymouth CAFCAS officers, I told them I wanted to see more of my dad. They questioned how this would make my mum feel. This shocked me, but I told them honestly it would probably upset her. It followed by them asking me how I felt upsetting my mum. They should have been impartial. I should not have been put in the position where I was made to feel ashamed for my feelings. I didn't want to hurt anyone, but this wasn't about that. It was about what was right and how I should have been brought up. And from the beginning, it should have been equally with both my parents. After, I was in the waiting room outside and I could hear my mum crying in her interview next door. I immediately thought they had told her what I said and I felt so guilty. Even after this upsetting interview, they twisted my words and lied in court about my wishes. This government organisation say they work in the child's best interests, yet have no evidence to support this claim. It is no surprise that Ofsted have repeatedly found this service to be inadequate. Like the whole secret family court system, everything is about money and power, and they'll abuse our human rights until they have this. They turned everything into such a war. The courts turned my parents against each other, using me to break my own family, and they did it oblivious of my feelings. I was caught in the middle every time, and I hated this. There were 2 sides, and I just wanted to be on both. As much as I love my brothers, my mum and my dad, I felt like I was the one hurting them. And if I wasn't there anymore, I felt like I was the one hurting them, and if I wasn't there anymore, they'd have no reason to go to court. I couldn't see any other way out. I wanted to be with my dad. I needed to be. It wasn't a feeling I could control. He was my dad. What was so wrong with that? The entire justice system is sexist. After separation, 93% of the time, children are made to live with their mother on the basis of gender. Women are treated more sympathetically and leniently than men. For example, after arrest, women are more likely than men to be cautioned rather than charged. They are less likely to be fined or sentenced to prison, and women sent to prison receive shorter sentences than men. Within most cases, as well as my own, all positive points from the mother are taken into account, along with all negative points of the father. If a mother turns up to court crying, she has been emotionally abused. Yet if father brings counselling reports, doctor's notes and evidence of repression, his plea is ignored. I cannot emphasise enough how biased our so-called justice system is. The definition of domestic abuse has no borders, and petty, insignificant things are warped to separate good, loving fathers from their families, just like I was. Think of all the women's help services, but have you seen them for men? In 2008, my dad was sentenced to prison for his campaigns against our corrupt system. People may say that the actions of Fathers for Justice are extreme, but you've got to understand that they are in extreme circumstances. And in the hell of the family courts, you are not heard unless you make it impossible to be ignored. Did they really think sending him to prison would make him give up fighting for me? This is clearly what they wanted. It was just my dad fighting for my rights to a father, not the criminal he was labelled as. Whilst in prison, he missed my 10th birthday, my piano exam, and our weekends together. This broke me that little bit more. Feeling hopeless hit me again and again. I couldn't believe it was happening and that it was come to this. How could those twisted, lying people possibly have the reason to put my dad away? How dare they deny me a father? How dare they not listen to me when they all say they work in my best interests? I had always been a case number, a paycheck, a child to be won by a parent. The family courts are a battle, not a justice system. They are breaking families for a reason. It builds the economy. In 2003, the family justice system cost the taxpayer £426 million. And by 2011, it cost £800 million, and it will rise. Dividing families means that there are 2 cars, 2 houses, 2 sets of bills. The government does this because happy families make no money for them. Think of all the businesses and the profit made from the grueling process of the family courts. The counsellors, social workers, barristers, solicitors, they all fuel the cycle to weaken the people and create more need for these professions. Imagine the expense of loans fathers pay to have their best court representation. However, still, they walk out of court unable to see their much-loved, much-missed children. When my dad was out of prison, another CAFCAS officer came from London to talk to me and look into my family. There were meetings with me at my mum's house, at my dad's house, and with the 3 of us separately. I stressed for ages over my room at my dad's. I was so worried how he would judge it. I knew how they looked for the smallest things that could be used against us. What if it was too tidy and looked unnatural, and he'd make out that I wasn't comfortable at our house? Or that it was too messy, that my dad didn't discipline me, and that our weekends were just fun. I knew their tricks, and as a child I should not have had the stress of this. I understood now that they all had ulterior motives behind their kind words and sympathetic smiles. I was so nervous when he came. It's such a terrifying thought that a mere hour or so could mean so much. He would decide what was to be done with my life, again, my life in the hands of some alien person. In our interview together at school, I made sure I made my feelings extremely clear. At age 5, when I was interviewed, I said I wanted to see my dad. They ignored this, saying that I was too young to know what I wanted. But I know if I'd said I wanted to stay with my mum that day, they'd have acted on it. I doubt I'd have seen my dad again. Looking back, I think that my dad going to prison really shook me. I wasn't just hurting anymore, I was angry. This was the turning point. I realised it wasn't going to carry on. I told the officer that if he didn't listen this time, he'd run away. I told him exactly how I felt, the disgusting way I'd been treated, and demanded that he'd listen to me. He could not blur my words. He could not ignore me. I had to put this man in a compromising situation by threatening my safety. It should not have taken this for me to get a voice. Following these interviews, the hearings were finally working in my favour, and in August of 2009, I was granted shared care and equal residency with my dad. We had an alternate week arrangement, and I would swap between mum and dad on a Friday after school. My holidays were split right down the middle, and even today, this is how I live between my parents, and it's worked so well. When everything began to settle down, my dad began to get involved in my school life. We helped out more on a friend's farm, and I got to see my family. I hardly knew the family on my dad's side because there had never been enough time to see them on the 4 days a month allocated to my dad. I started to sleep better at night, and I became more confident. I noticed a change in myself. Life was how it should have been from the very start. But 9 years. It took 9 years to be able to be with my dad. 9 years of precious time I'll never get back. After, my parents seemed to get on almost as if nothing had happened, which confirms how much of a setup the whole thing had been. The lies and other excuses had only been as a kind of ammunition to defeat my dad, make him look bad, not fit to be my parent. Talking to my mum about this, she tells me it's what her solicitors told her to do. What a waste of time. What unnecessary pain. At home, my dad has about 3 suitcases full of paperwork. Was that in the interest of me, or were people just making money out of me? It is a corrupt system that's filling our societies with a generation that are damaged and hurt, unveiling crime, chaos, and anger onto our streets. Prisons are swelling with young offenders, over 70% of which come from lone parent families. A child needs both of their parents. Fathers play key roles in developing a child's confidence, self-control, and self-esteem. Without this, how do you expect them to behave? Fatherless boys are twice as likely to be excluded from school, and girls 2.5 times more likely to become pregnant in their teens. Britain has the highest level of self-harming in Europe. It is proven that children brought up by both their parents are more likely to have good physical and emotional health and achieve grades 43% higher than others. Still, family courts push 200 children a day through heart-wrenching family court battles. I still cry myself to sleep sometimes, remembering how horrible I felt and trying to understand everything that happened to me. It is so hard to deal with because they didn't have a right to do what they did to me and my dad. And there was nothing I could do to stop it. I have so many questions to ask. I've written to CAFCAS, the CSA, the NSPCC, and to Judge David Tyzak, but nobody cares. I've asked them why they hurt me, why they're hurting others still, and I've asked for apologies. They come up with excuses or don't even reply to me. I've even been threatened with harassment by my own police service for writing to the judge, and even after all the trouble he caused my family. When I wrote to CAFCAS, they would not take any responsibility for what they put me through. I requested my case files from them in hope I could figure it out myself and gain some understanding of how it worked. But I could not have been more disappointed when I received the folder. The writing on the pages just covered in blacked out lines. There literally wasn't anything I could read that made sense. On a page, there were 2 or 3 words, and all else was deemed confidential and blacked out. The NSPCC say they prevent cruelty to children, yet when I told them about my story, they would not comment on other government organisations, so would not do anything when I was crying for their help. How do they expect to end the abuse on children if they refuse to stop the source of the problem? All of these organisations are protecting each other. Their aims are the same. Even the police are puppets of this system. I thought when my case finished in 2009, I could move on from everything I'd been through, but it doesn't go. The things that have happened to me, I can never forget. And all those things I felt are never far away. It sickens me to think that so many children are put through the same pain I went through. I want to end the abuse on children in the family courts. I've decided to use my experience and fight back and give children the voice I never had.
Thank you, Rosie.
So straight away,
It's hard to watch, isn't it?
when you look at it, everything we spoke about, where she's written for answers, and they've ignored her, like they've ignored every one of us who've written for answers, and for Ian Briggs, and you know, and for other people we've got go with us. And she said, you know, the family courts, they caused the trauma. That girl, you can see the trauma. No child should go through any type of trauma like that, because it sits with him. Because your memories will, and then in the conversations you have about 60,000 minute conversations in an hour. All right. And that inner conversations are not good enough. I should have known better. You know, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable. She's got abandonment. She's got a lot of things in there which you can. I take my hat off to her, because, but look at all the children, like she said, all the children in the system already who are going through that. And the kids are being used as pawns, and we shouldn't be using our children like that. It's mind warfare on our children. So what happens then? They grow up, and they grow up broken. They grow up in a bad place. They reliving traumas in their memories all the time. And they haven't learned the basics, fundamentals of you need your father, you need your mother. And look, my children, if my children watch this, I apologize for what I've done to you, because it's just, no child should go through that at all. It's mind games, and it's mind games which takes you to dark places in your life, mate. And I tell you what, people don't realize when you're breaking up. And then we got a justice system which lets people down. We got a child maintenance support system. And Sarah, I'm going to take my hat off to you. You and your partner, Ricky, absolutely. Well done. Well done. Because the person who is the most important is the child. I say to people, the most important person is yourself.
That's true until you become a parent.
No, because if you don't look after yourself, and this is what a lot of people don't realize, if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after anybody else. And this is where I'm going to go with this, because what did she say about her mother? When they listened and she had 50% share, her mother was great.
Mm.
Like if nothing ever happened. But the impact's already been made on that child. That child's had a stamp. She's been branded with that boof. It's like a big fist coming down, bang, and then it's in there. Boom, it's lodged in. And it'll take her a long time to get through. It'll take her a lot of work to get through that. Clearing the inner conversations which create the feelings and emotions. She'll become a victim. She'll get angry. She'll get concerned, and she may not take action. She'll just go round in the moment. Because the biggest thing is we have this fear. And we don't teach anybody about mental health in school. And the reason we don't do it, because it makes so much money. It makes so much money off of the government. You know, can you imagine your daughter going through that, say? It's heartbreaking.
I wouldn't. I just being a shitty partner to somebody doesn't make them a bad parent.
No, it doesn't. No.
And there's just no reason that the kids need to. We bent over backwards, both of us, to make sure that our daughter wasn't feeling like she was disloyal to one of us for wanting to see the other one, or I couldn't do that to her. I just couldn't.
Sarah, how did that make you feel with everything now that you know about the CMS?
Yeah.
With everything now that you know about the corruption that's going on in the family courts, it's unbelievable, isn't it? It
was all there. It was all there. She said everything about it. They're making money from people's misery. The courts, Kafkas, everyone. It's just a money-making scam, basically.
If you had told me that years ago, I'd have said, "Oh, don't be so stupid. They're there to help you." But you know, because you get sucked into these things. They're geared up to kind of make themselves look good, to help everybody. It's not until you start poking around and poking your nose in where they don't want it that you really start seeing the true colours of everything.
The CMS are saying they're there to give the child the best start in life or lift children out of poverty. That was their...
But I'm laughing by that and I'm giggling because there was something me and Sarah were talking briefly. It was just briefly earlier, and she said to me, once I was in the system, they bent over backwards for me. That's what it seemed like.
Yeah, it was.
More like it's bend over, touch your toes. Yeah.
Do you know something though, Clive, right? Craig and myself putting all the jokes to one side and everything, because you know this is really serious stuff that's going on. And I get when people say, you know, that it's all about the child, but it's about everybody. You know, we're all human beings. We all have a right to have a family life. Yeah, it is a human right for all of us to have, you know, a family life. That's the bottom line. Family is so important. It's family that's gonna see you through those dark times.
It's everybody. It's everybody involved in it. But don't forget, child maintenance. Their brand is, we are you for the child. We will come between you and mediate and sort out the payments for the child. But what they do, they come in, get you in the system. Well, hey, we got you. That's it. Now let's rip them apart. Let's play mind games with them. Oh, I'm sorry, sir, but he's not paying. We can't get the paperwork.
That's it. Like that causes the conflict.
And that's where it starts going in. So they play with the non-paying parent, the paying parent,
paying parent,
non-resident parent, and they play with their minds. So all of a sudden, the resident parent starts hating the non-resident, and what they come to loggerheads. The child is down here now. The child's lost between these. You've got these two fighting each other, because you got at the top, you got the CSA going, yes, we've got them where we want them. And then what will happen? One will go run. One will either keep attacking, fight or flight, or we'll turn around and go, I tell you what, I've had enough of this. And that's, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong. It got to a stage where Ricky probably went, I've had enough of this now. This is now, I'm out here. I've just had enough. And this is what happens. I mean, it is, and once it happens like that, there's only one or two ways you're going to go, no. You're going to turn to drink, drugs to avoid your emotions. You're going to turn to doing stuff that to avoid them emotions, or you're going to run away, mate. And once you run away, you lose the contact with the family, everybody. And who's losing then? All the kids, everybody. All right.
Clive.
But do you know something though? Do you know something, Clive? And Craig and myself say this to each other a lot of the time, you know, because we're all very close, and that's the reason why we've got into this. And me and Craig say to each other all the time, we put all this stuff out there, we put all this stuff on social media, you know, we're not conspiracy theorists. No. We're not, you know, we're not lunatics who sit here smoking weed, roasting marshmallows, concocting all these stories and bringing all these people on of what's going on.
Get your tinfoil hat on, mate.
Yeah, and just, you know what? Everybody just doesn't care about what's going on, but they don't realise in a second that whether they've been married for 20 years, 25 years, that they've got children, that overnight their lives can be turned upside down, because what we talk about on a daily basis to do with the family courts, the child maintenance service, it doesn't affect people unless it affects you.
But what I'm going to say to you is they don't care. That's mind talk. That's that mind talk. That's that in a conversation. People do care who know about the system. A lot of people would rather just, because it doesn't affect them. I'm going to be straight by, and I shouldn't be saying this, all right? But my brother's gone through exactly the same. And my stepmother and father taking on the child because he works away. And they do care, mate. As soon as they find out and they start looking at the system, what people do, they try and, I don't want to go near that because it's too much for me. Until they're drawn into it. And when they're drawn into it, that's when they actually go, because it's like anything in life, the veterans community you know, this weekend I went down to Bath, down to PTSD camp, and to see what happened down there, mate. 200 police officers raided our camp. All right. To see a family ripping apart, and they actually turned around and said, never thought this would happen, Clive. And I said, look, this has happened to other people for speaking up. Be careful, because they come and attack. Mate, once you start speaking out, once you start getting into this, you know, some people say to me, why do you bother? Why do you bother? Why waste your time, Clive? And I say, because I want people to speak out. I want change. If you don't change the system, we can have people walking around exploding everywhere. It's like that pressure cooker. That's what it's like. And your mind, we can't afford to have anybody.
I hear what you're saying there, Clive, because there's numerous times that Craig and myself have said, why do we bother? Why do we bother doing this?
Yeah.
You know, we don't care. You know, we could have that attitude.
Yeah.
We don't care. We're all right. You know, so many people that I know, and I'm not going to go into names or anything like that. They've said to me, God Almighty, Noel, you know, I wish I'd listened to you. I wish I'd listened to you, because in an instant, and I mean it, people just do not realise how their lives, whether they've got money, whether they haven't got money, whether they've got success, whether they don't have success, they have no idea how quickly their lives can be turned upside down. The minute that your name, and I've said it, so I think I say it as a conclusion to every single one of our podcasts that we do, that your name goes into that tombola, and if you make it out of the other end, you're very, very lucky. You're one of the lucky ones. And Bambos, who we had on, you know, a couple of weeks ago, when I first spoke to Bambos about all of this, you know, Craig and myself laugh about Bambos, you know, in terms of that he's the sleeping lion because of his knowledge.
Yeah.
And he said to me, when you get involved with the CMS, you have three options and three options only. One is you pay them whatever they tell you that you're going to pay.
Yeah.
And then you continue paying whatever they tell you that you're going to pay. And you just don't say a word, and they rip you off and they go into your bank account and they rob it and you still don't say anything.
Yeah.
Two, you commit suicide.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are your two options there. Or three, which is your third option, which is a very, 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 very tough option. And it's the most stressful option. And I've been through it, is that you fight them. Every step of the way, you fight and you fight and you fight until you've got no fight, literally, that's left inside you before you become another statistic.
Yeah.
And people have to start really, really learning and understanding the bigger picture of what's going on. That this is all corruption at the expense of the British taxpayer as well. This is all British, all these people, social services, CAFCAS, all of these people and the judiciary, all these judges that sit on telephone digit salaries, yeah, is all at the expense of the British taxpayer.
Yeah, definitely. And people have got to wake up, because, look, we've already said, mate, it's corporates. All right. That's the biggest thing. So whoever's ringing me, do me a favour, get off for a minute, because I can't be bothered answering it.
Clive, I'll send you a text, and this is for Sarah's benefit. Can you share the text, please?
Where have you sent it?
Send it to your WhatsApp. If you can share the screen, so people, Sarah can see it, and so the rest of the guys can see it as well.
Whoa, Craig, what have you sent you?
It's from the Child Support Handbook.
Oh, hang on, mate, hang on. All right, yeah.
It's about case closure.
You sent me something else. I can't turn. How do you turn it over? How do you turn the image?
Let me take it again. I'll send it to you again.
You are just a sometimes I don't know what to say to you, but because you just sent me, and I can't read that sideways, but
Oh, right. Right. Okay. So there is.
yeah, I'm sorry, it's a plonker.
Right. So it's chapter 2. Chapter 2.
Come on, Craig, man, we're getting on now.
Hold on.
I got a bar of chocolate. I got a bar of chocolate with my name on it.
Withdrawn.
No, where did you get? Share it, man. Just share it on the screen, will you?
I don't know how to, man. God damn it.
You two,
God, man.
oi, you two, behave.
Yeah, I'll do number
What
2
about
the
a chocolate?
case again, mate.
I've got a bar of chocolate waiting for me, man, in the freezer.
In the freezer.
I love.
You know what I think it is with you two, but and bully beef and chips or whatever you call him nowadays.
Bully beefcake.
Yeah, bully beefcake. That's it. Bully beef. What is this? Bully beefcake. You lot are nutters, mate. I'll tell you.
He is, mate. He's bully beefcake, mate. When he gets angry, he pokes his tongue out. He goes like, ah. Come on, Craig, hurry up, will you?
Yeah.
All right, Craig, come on.
Oh, be quiet, Uncle Fester.
People are watching this and looking at you and thinking, what a numpty. Ken Barlow again.
Shut it.
You know,
Fatty bum bum. Hey, fatty bum bum.
What are you laughing at? Who said you could laugh at that?
Hey, fatty bum bum.
I tell you what, I was going to say thank you for coming on, that, but that's it now, sir. After that, I don't know what to say to you anymore. Don't know what to say.
Mr. Arbuckle, come on, Mr. Arbuckle.
Right, can you see it? Hang on, I need to play with my mouse. Right, so withdrawing or cancelling an application, the applicant no longer wants to proceed. An applicant can request that the Child Maintenance Services, CMS, cancel her or his application for child support. The request can be made at any time, whether or not a cancellation has been made. Oh, excuse me. CMS cannot refuse this request. For more information on when the application is cancelled or a calculation ceases to have effect, see page 128. Requests can be made by telephone. Yeah, you've done it in writing, Sarah, haven't you?
I phoned them because you can't, yeah, it was just, and that took me 2 hours to get through for a literally 10-second
Well, let's send an email, Sarah. We'll send an email so they do get it.
So,
yeah.
Oh, right. This is the CMS may cancel an application before a calculation is made if the applicant does not provide information. See below. The rules are different if the qualifying child. Okay, yeah, guys, that's not me. Craig, why do you send us that? An application does not provide information. CMS can only cancel a case if no effective application has been made. See page 25. If a person with a care does not provide sufficient information, the CMS can close the case. She or he will not receive child support. And he or she will not receive child support. If there is an effective application, the decision must be made and notified to the parties, even if it is the decision not to make a calculation. So what are you trying to say, Craig? They can stop the child support?
Yes. What that's saying is the CMS, right, if you withdraw a cancel application, basically what they're saying is that if they cannot refuse the the receiving parent, they cannot refuse to have the case closed.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
And this is the book you need to get your hands on.
Well, why didn't you just take a photocopy and send it to us?
So they can't refuse my request to close the case down, but they more importantly can't refuse the request not to pursue for the arrears.
Because if you say you don't want the arrears collecting,
yeah,
they'll have to cancel the arrears, and that's in the back here of this book.
Okay.
The only thing is, though, Craig, do they ever do that? No.
No.
Well, no, because like I keep saying to people, you know, if people write in, well, that's it. That's the letter, and it stays in that.
Right.
Hang on, Clive. That stays there in that business unit. Okay, that's their dirty little secret. So they'll just scan it, chuck it in your folder, and that's it. Nothing will be done. So the only way to drag the vampire into daylight is to send multiple emails to them, which works a treat. But you have to do that, because if you phone them, they'll deny it, they'll lie, they delete the recordings, send the letter.
They fabricate recordings as
Right.
well, don't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what we have to do is we have to send emails.
Right, Craig. We're gonna
Yes.
talk about that in a minute, because I've got to stop this recording, because it is I don't know how long we've gone on for. We might have gone on for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And if we have, we're sorry we've gone on so long.
An hour and a half.
It's been good stuff, hasn't it? So let's end it here, because Sarah, have you got anything else to say?
Well, I will be back in touch when I receive my letter up to Monday to see if they've made sure they've included in the letter not to pursue for this bogus arrears.
Okay.
And if they do put it in the letter and they still carry on trying to chase Ricky for the money, then I'll let you know.
Okay, brilliant. So I tell you what, on that note, I am going to end the recording. So from me, everybody, look after yourself, stay safe, and don't forget, don't beat yourselves up. There's one thing I've learned is life goes on. It may feel like shit at the moment, but it does go on. What do you want to say, Coxie?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And, you know, I would encourage anybody who's watching this, who's in a very, very dark place because of, you know, what's going on, you know, reach out from us. Definitely. You know, I know that Bambos feels a lot better because he's kept it internal, all his, you know, his story. And sometimes, you know, people need to come on here and vent what their story is so that they know that they're getting heard. And what is it you always say, Clive? It's just great to talk, isn't it?
Great to talk. We talk for hours, can't we? We could talk for hours, especially with Bully Beefcake. Bully Beefcake, what do you want to say? That's enough. Don't need to say anything, Bully. Yeah, don't have a last word, bitch.
Go on, Sarah.
Last word, Sarah.
I don't really know.
Hey! You got a woman who stuck for words. Get in there. Anyway, good night. See you all later.